which is drowning. No, I think we're live.
Okay.
I think. Oh my God, are we early?
We're 1 minute early.
Happy week after BC Day, Victoria Day. I think it was Victoria Day. Was last week.
Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Let's see. Was that what we called it? Yeah, yeah. So yeah, happy 1 week after Victoria Day.
Excellent. How's your weather doing there?
Oh God, so nice. It's just perfect. It's just perfect weather. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's funny, like, people always comment on how I just get sort of more and more uh tanned over the summer. You can see my
Yeah, it's
sunglass
true.
shape, right? I
Yeah.
have you can see and part of it is like and like I put sunblock on. I promise I wear a hat. Doesn't help. I have like I have like I wear these like ankle socks, right, for my
Uh-huh.
shoes for hiking. And so I have like skin socks, which is really funny. But we've been out nonstop, and
Oh,
Carla, has been, well, like, now that we've got the new dog and she's got tons of energy,
yeah.
good to go. We've been doing a lot of bigger hikes and just sort of testing out her ability. And at this point, we're doing hikes, 10, 12K, 15K hikes with
Have
serious.
you got her doggy backpack so she can carry her own water
She
yet?
does have a doggy backpack. We haven't done like an overnighter yet, so typically what I'll do is I actually carry a water filter, and
Yeah.
then we just pull water on the because there's so many rivers and lakes and stuff wherever we hike. So I just pull water from the trail, so we don't have to carry water. Um, but yeah, no, we've got a little backpack for her. So we'll start doing some overnight multi-day hikes in the next couple of days, and
That's awesome.
yeah, no, it's super fun. It's been great, and it was sort of like it was a last summer we couldn't do very much, and this summer, yeah, we're unleashed. So British Columbia, we will explore you. Um, okay, let's see. I'm gonna say hi to a bunch of people. Hello to Adam Synergy, Christian Barrett, Christopher Senti, Coalfire, Don't Jim, Doug Ellis, Frank Tippin, Gordon Dewis, Green W, Grant Lanning, Guido Bibra, Harry M, Helg Bjarkog, Henrik Bo Anderson, Janelle Duncan, John Suffield, Johnny Zed, Kira H, Leonard Clark, Lillian Brennan, Linda Sadiq, Mark Sheeran, Mr. Tom Harbin, Nancy Graziano, Ocean McIntyre, Paul Gracie, Raj Luthra, Richard Hayes, Sergusi, So Reel's Entropia Universe, that's a good one. Umu, Wayne Johnson, and Yuval Litvin. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Pamela, how you feeling?
I am almost alive again. It's so last Friday I was at the stage of I don't need to go to the doctor. It's a virus. I'm just going to treat the symptoms. There's nothing a doctor can do for a virus. I was so sick and I was so miserable. And Sunday morning I woke up unable to breathe, which is a really awkward way to wake up.
Yeah.
And was doing the gasping for air, do I call 911, and then remembered like a TV show or something where they like shove small child into steam shower to resurrect breathing, and that worked. And I then went to urgent care without having to pay for an ambulance. And steroids, it turns out that steroids really help.
Yes.
And
Any
a
any
week
parent who has nebulized their child, they know this experience.
so albuterol inhaler,
Yep.
prednisone,
Yeah.
codeine cough syrup. I'm not on it right now. This is like an experiment. This is my first time without it so that I can broadcast. But yeah, I got acute bronchitis, and I haven't. Yeah, like couldn't breathe Sunday morning. That
You've
was
you've
not
had
good.
this a few times before. So do
Yeah,
you have a tendency for it, right?
I actually have lung damage.
Yeah.
I got really I have a weakened immune system. Technically, it's called an idiopathic immune disorder because I haven't paid for the genetic testing that they would like to do to figure out exactly what
Right.
it is. Um, And yeah, if you look at my lungs, they just don't, they're
Yeah.
scarred up from so many times getting
Yeah.
sick.
So, like my son, when he was just a little baby, he had a really bad bronchial infection, and we had to
Mhm.
go in and get him nebulized. Don't Jim says we call that baby vaporizing. I feel that that's a different thing where you turn a baby into a gas, but
Don't do that,
don't
by
do
the way.
that. Yeah, yeah. One is medicine. The other is a crime against humanity. So yeah, and the doctor just said like this will be his life. Like he will get these, he
Yeah.
will get worse lung infections for probably the rest of his life, and he does. He does
Yeah.
every year or so he'll get a bad cough, he'll get a bad cold, and it will last. Like I'll be over it in a week, a weekend.
Yeah.
It'll take him. He'll be still kind of coughing a bit for a month, and
And
yeah, and it
and
just
this is one I got from Kyle, my husband, who went on a business trip,
yeah,
and he came home from the business trip, and I should have self-exiled. I know I have a crappy immune system. I didn't.
yeah,
And so I got it from him.
yeah.
I took it to Hungary. I was sick the whole time I was in Hungary. I
Oh,
got worse when I got home, and yeah, it's so the moral of the story is be kind to your lungs. You need them later.
yep,
And remember that doctors offer steroids. So even if you're like, you don't use antibiotics for viruses, that is true, but that
yes.
doesn't mean your doctor can't help you.
And but what is the deal? I mean, okay, so as a Canadian, we don't really think about this at all, and I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people with various interesting medical systems around the world.
Mhm.
You've got a bad cough, you go and you talk to your doctor, you go to the clinic. They like if you don't have a medical plan, what will
There's
it set you
nothing you can
back?
do.
You just suck it up, like you
Yeah.
spend whatever several $100s to go see the doctor.
No, 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 several
Several
thousand.
thousand.
Like
Yeah.
my urgent care visit on Sunday, where they also did X-rays of my lungs. That's going to be a couple $1,000 bill.
What?
Yeah. So
Oh
out of
man.
pocket, I'll probably end up paying like 100. So I've already paid 90. I'll probably end up paying another 100 something for the X-ray. And this is, I have medical insurance, and I'm
Right.
still going to be out a few
Yeah.
$100. And
Wow.
that's another part of why, like, I don't earn enough money to go to the doctor every time I'm sick.
Yeah. Well, you are married to a Canadian, so
I know.
anytime you want, just like cross the border, and we'll be
Oh
glad
yeah,
to.
it's we can't afford to retire in this country, not with my health.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
All right. So if
yeah.
you're wondering what it is that you've stumbled into, this is going to be an episode of Astronomy Cast. Um, we will take some amount of time to do this show. Pamela, feel free to make some kind of hand sign while you're doing the show when you're starting to feel like your voice is getting all used up, and I will
Okay.
be glad to sort of land the plane gracefully.
Okay.
So. Um,
As is being pointed out in the chat, just don't make me laugh.
yeah,
As long as I don't inhale deeply,
right. Yeah.
inhaling deeply that does me in.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Um,
All
Let me
right,
know when
I
you're
need
ready.
to find where I buried my Audacity window. I opened it and then I opened like five other things. There it is. And it's even set up correctly.
You ready?
Hmm.
Is it working? It's done. You did
It
it.
is. Yeah, I has a recording
Okay.
going.
Good. Me too. Now I have to find my intro. Okay. Here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 531, Australian Indigenous Astronomy. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser Cain, publisher of Universe Today. With me, as always, is Dr. Pamela Gay, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I'm doing well enough. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
you're a little sick, which is why there's a bit of a delay with the show last week. So if this show ends suddenly, it's because Pamela is tapping out and needs to go and have some more lozenges, and get back to sleep. But Pamela, you've got big news that's come out this week for
Yes.
CosmoQuest and OSIRIS-REx. So can you tell us about it?
Well, I want to preface all of this by saying I work with the best group of humans ever, and this great news wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of them covering my sorry ass while I was so sick for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
This Wednesday, we launched Bennu Mappers, which is a new project to map out all the rocks, measure all the boulders, find all the craters, basically determine where are the hazardous zones on the asteroid Bennu and where are the cool areas where we should go and try and grab a rock sample. We have until July 10 to map out what, when we're done, will be close to 5,000 images of this asteroid.
And
And
and this is going to be a tricky job because
yeah,
I mean, the surface of Bennu is a lot more hazardous than NASA was ever expecting. And so they
yeah,
are actually having a rough time finding nice safe landing spot that the mission can go down and grab a sample and bring it back. And so they need as much help as they can to essentially map out all of the rocks and get a sense of what's where and where is it safe for them to sneak in and grab a sample
yeah.
and bring it back home to Earth.
And this is the kind of thing where we took delivery on May 15th of the images. And these are like brand spanking fresh images from the spacecraft. And expletives were spoken because we had written our software, we had designed our tutorial, we had done everything assuming that Bennu would be kind of like Itakawa, which an image might have 2 or 3 craters, it might have a few dozen boulders,
It's
100 rocks or so.
it's like a pile of gravel.
Oh my God, it's so bad. And one of the things that we hit that we were working on diagnosing is our poor innocent software periodically is just like, F this. I'm just going to sit here and process what you sent to me and not give you another image because I don't want another image. There's too many rocks.
Too many
So
rocks.
occasionally our software is just hanging and not giving people the next image. We've confirmed your data is getting written. It just looks like the software is doing
Right.
nothing.
Right.
Just do a hard refresh on the screen and you'll be fine. Um, but we were not anticipating this, and together we can get through this. And I will be live streaming mapping things later.
Oh, that's
I
amazing.
broke down. I set up my Wacom tablet just because
Yeah.
it was too much to do with a trackpad.
Yeah.
But we are super pleased with how well it's working. Last I checked, we had marked roughly 500,000 rocks so far.
In
And
like days.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
that many rocks.
Yeah.
So we're going to get 15 different people looking at every single image.
Yeah.
We know that everyone is going to miss a few rocks because there's hundreds
Yeah.
per image. But together we're going to get a good enough sample
Yeah.
of what's going on that we can figure out what's safe and what's not. So please join us by July 10th. We have only until July 10th to get through this data set. After July 10th, we are going to be moving Bennu Mappers over into our main CosmoQuest interface and working on doing science mapping. And people are pointing out in chat, I forgot to put up my pop filter.
Oh.
We'll stop popping now. Sorry about that, folks. So yeah, please help us.
All right.
OSIRIS-REx needs you. You
Yeah.
are Osiris.
Yes,
Rex
it.
is only hope.
Yeah, if you have ever like been excited and enthusiastic about space and wanted to be a part of it and want to help with the science that's getting done out there, this is your moment. Come to Bennu Mappers, create an account if you don't already have one, and just spend some time helping figure out the rocks on the surface of this asteroid that is millions
It's a
of kilometers
rubble
away
pile.
from Earth, and we are going to be bringing a sample back. This is your chance to get involved.
The best way I have to describe Bennu is imagine an interstellar dump truck filled with gravel
Yeah.
and rocks from a construction site, and it hit a giant pothole, flung its cargo into space, and that cargo gravitationally held itself together.
Yep.
We are looking at essentially the rubble pile that normally would be in the back of a dump truck, except it's an asteroid, and trying to find a safe place to go in and grab a sample.
Yeah.
It's going to take all of us.
Yeah.
Just
So exciting.
help,
It's such
help.
a cool project, and so like, and a huge thank you to the Osiris Rex team for partnering with CosmoQuest and giving us the opportunity to be able to share this. It's so fun to be
So
able to have these. Yep.
benu.cosmoquest.org.
All right.
And if it seems to not save your image, it saved your image. It just gave up and didn't give you a new one. Refresh your screen.
All right. This episode of Astronomy Cast was brought to you by CosmoQuest, which is us. All right. This week, we focus on the archaeoastronomy of another part of the world, this time from the Indigenous people of Australia, another group of people whose lives depended on knowing what was happening in the sky from season to season. All right, Pamela, you got a big continent here. What is the evidence of archaeoastronomy from the continent of Australia?
Well, what's kind of cool with Australia is it's not so much archaeoastronomy as it's modern anthropology that allows us to look back on 65,000 years of history. With the Aboriginal tribes of Australia, we're looking at a couple hundred different language groups. We are looking at a continent that has been peopled for 65,000 years, that hasn't undergone the same kinds of destruction that civilizations here in North and South America underwent. And so, as we talk with the people who are there today, we can hear in today's oral tradition evidence of, for instance, a meteor impact that was thousands of years ago, a supernova that was thousands of years ago, and they still pay attention to these stories. This is still part of how they live their lives and why they do and don't go certain places. And it's really an amazing culture. And they look at space in such a different way. Instead of having 4 seasons, many of the different nations of Australia mark out 6 different seasons of the year that are marked out with when different of the constellations rise on the horizon. Some constellations mark out this is when you should go and gather the eggs. This is when these animals can be expected to be breeding, the dingoes, for instance.
Uh,
It's different.
and we've both had the opportunity now to be in Australia. I was there almost a year ago, thanks to Dylan O'Donnell and his. I got to speak at his conference, Star Stuff, and then Carla and I went on a road trip north from there into the jungle part of Australia, north of Brisbane, and it was like the skies there are they're stunning. Like it's not surprising that anyone who lived there without light pollution and saw that sky, and it's as a Canadian, we have dark skies as well here, and I've seen plenty of Milky Way, but the core of the Milky Way is down by the horizon. We see a little bit of it over the summer when we get to see Sagittarius and Scorpio and some of those constellations, and then the rest of the year it's fine. It's fine. But there it is, just right overhead. It blazes. The planets move through it right overhead. There's like, even
And
if you have seen dark skies, you have not seen Australian dark skies. They are next level. They absolutely have the best view. The people in the southern hemisphere have the best view to
yes.
the core of the Milky Way that we just can't experience from the north.
And like the peoples of South America and Southern Africa, they include in how they mark out the skies the dark paths through the Milky Way. There is a tradition of seeing an emu spread
Yes,
out across the Milky Way, or the Kolchak Nebula, that super dark patch.
I saw it.
In, yeah,
Yeah, you
so
absolutely see it. If once someone points it out to you, you see it.
and that's only one of the stories. another one of the stories that I particularly love related to the Milky Way is they see the Milky Way as a dark river through the sky, and it's the souls of men and women who have passed on to the heavens that have their fires along that river. And in some of their traditions, when they see a shooting star, that is the soul of someone who died far from home returning to home. It's
Right
just
on.
cool stories.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that idea. What was it? There was a animation that came out just a couple of years ago. But anyway, this idea of right, like putting floating lanterns on like on a river and then letting them go and letting them all float down river, and you get this, they do that in Japan and China and places like that, but it's a very cool effect. um, so what are, now you mentioned a couple of real big hitters there: supernova, uh, meteorite impact. Give me some more information.
So I think the two really awesome things to come out of Aboriginal astronomy is how they look at their crater covered land and actually maintain a history of, yeah, these holes in the ground are actually craters, as well as their tradition of supernovas. So let's start with the craters. Australia is one of the oldest land masses. It has 30 confirmed craters that are well structured. You look at them from an airplane and you're like, yes, that is a crater. And the thing that really gets me is they knew that these things in the ground were formed from things falling from the sky. In one case, the Henbury crater, about 4,200 years ago, a large nickel iron space rock um, hit Central Australia. And when it came down about 145 kilometers south of Siding Springs, it carved out a bunch of individual different craters. And when Westerners first started visiting that land and they had an Aboriginal guide with them, the guide was like, no, we don't go there. That is the land that was formed when fire fell from the sky. And
Right.
they have a modern day tradition of fire fell from the sky and formed this land. And that's an oral tradition that goes back 4,200 years. Um, there are many other craters across Australia that they look at, and the various people know this was a crater here. Wolfcreek Craters is another one of these that is recognized as having fallen, in this case, when a star fell from the sky. And there are traditions of people going down in oral stories and exploring the sinkholes and traveling them to through them to water in a great distant area. And it was a mark of heroism to travel underground under these craters. And so there are clearly stories of when people explored and survived, and now people don't do that because those heroes did stupid things.
Right.
And so there's this mix of preserving the science, preserving the lore, and turning it into a, please children, don't go do that. This is
Right.
dangerous.
Well, and because Australia is a more arid place, the
Hmm.
amount of erosion, the kind of rain erosion, snow erosion, the shifting seasons, I guess powerful winds, but and just vegetation aren't tearing apart the landscape at the same pace they are in other places. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, and there are places that you can see asteroid impacts, but you really only see them from space, and you can only recognize that shape. I'm sure a lot of them weren't even detected until somebody had actually gone to space and looked down and went, "Oh, there's one," right?
And one of the things that modern day people are working to do is to work with the tribes to record their stories, to make sure their stories don't get lost. And in the process of doing this, they're finding more and more tales of stars falling from the sky and hitting the land and shaping the land, then we currently have records of craters. So there's probably a lot more craters out there that are just overgrown today, but their stories remain in the oral legend. And this is really one of the things about Australia that I haven't read about very often. And and this is because their folklore goes back for so far. It is questioned if they've been able to actually preserve stories from earlier times. For instance, their Pleiades stories are seven sisters, and there's certain stories that crop up over and over throughout humanity where some anthropologists actually wonder if these are stories that have been carried as humans have branched out across the world. And it's not that this is an Aboriginal story, it's not that this is a Greek story, it's not that this is a Middle Eastern story, but rather that these are a early human story. And as our languages have fragmented, as our genetics have fragmented, some of the stories exist from before any of these other things existed. And it's seeing these things preserved in Australia that actually hints at this is something that may or may not be true. It could be that just people like to see the Pleiades of the Seven Sisters, and this is completely unrelated. And it's a what if these are the stories we need to follow up on.
Right. I mean, it's always fascinating when you get this opportunity to have some kind of archaeological or record like this for some event that we know happened scientifically, observationally, and that you can have some kind of correlation to the stories, and the two can line up. I mean, and they're very rare. I mean, there's been some
Yes.
mentions of stuff in like some medieval history books talk about potentially like this time a comet came by, or this time maybe a supernova went off, and each one of these is a very rare opportunity. Someone was even trying to figure out the location of Planet 9 from sort of observations of when various comets were passing by.
And and this is where we have two different things that we have to look at. So thing one is the standard issue of, are we seeing different tribes around the world, different nations around the world, different peoples all recording the same event? So for instance, there is a indigenous story in Australia, of two brothers, and I'm going to destroy the pronunciation of this. I am so sorry. It's Niragua Miri and Napabiru. And the two brothers were fishing in a canoe when a storm hit and capsized their boat. And the story goes on to describe this flash in the sky that formed between the two brothers, and you can still see the two brothers in the sky. And this story is now tied to stars that are the Western constellation Scorpius, and are the stars Shula and Lishash. And it's thought that what they're describing is the 393 Common Era supernova
Wow.
that appeared near those two stars. So there are cases of stories that crop up around the world that are recorded in China, that are seen in painted relics, that are caught in the Aboriginal stories of Australia, that are a single event evolved by multiple people. But the other case that it's from looking at these cut off peoples that have been there uniquely since 65,000 years ago, in this case, the Aboriginals of Australia, where when we see stories that are the same, so this is where we see stories of the Great Flood around the world, where we see stories of, in this case, the Seven Sisters cropping up over and over and over for the Pleiades. Perhaps these are stories that go back from before 65,000 years ago.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's the whoa.
Yeah. That events happened that were so powerful, that were so cataclysmic, that humans carried along oral traditions to every corner of the globe.
And this fits in with our understanding, for instance, that many societies the words for mother all have that same ma sound associated with them, where there's just certain things that have been carried on and on and on. But we can't know. We don't know. It's just intriguing. And I love to bring up these intriguing things where we don't know, and I hope to have answers,
Yeah.
because that's why we keep doing science, is to figure out what of these are real, what of these are just wishful thinking, and what is this science. And when it comes to science, the Aborigines also had it over on the Westerners when it came to Ada Carr.
Yeah, I was going to mention that because I know we covered that on Universe Today. Oh man, like 10 years ago.
So early anthropologists, otherwise known as rich white dudes going out and talking to locals. Um, William Edward Stanbridge was one of those early anthropologists who went out and he talked to the Burong clan. This is part of the Rugaya language group. And these people have prided themselves on having some of the best astronomy knowledge in Australia. They have noted the variability of a variety of large red stars. They have tracked the rising and setting of the planets. And one of the things that was recorded by William Edward Stanbridge was they referred to a star, a Caliguloric war star, that when they pointed to it in the sky, he just couldn't see. And he was doing this back in the mid 1800s after the outburst of Eta Carina
Right.
and after Eta Carr had faded away from being easily visible by eye. So they were describing to him a star that had undergone this war and this outburst. And they could say when it happened and where it happened. And he's like, I don't see it. But what he was describing, what they were telling him of, was that outburst of Eta Carina that was recorded by other people, but he, being more of an anthropologist than an astronomer, looked up, didn't see it. But he and many others actually have worked very hard to try and record maps of what are the local names for all of these stars so that we can refer to the stars by all the names they've had through history.
And for people who don't know, right, Eta Carr is probably going to be the next supernova that we see in the sky that we know of. It's relatively close. It is a supergiant star, and it is in its death throes right now, and it will explode any moment now, between now and the next 100,000 years.
Yeah, it's really kind of this is a star that is misbehaving on human timescales, and over the course of just a few generations might go from being a kind of meh star in the constellation Carina to having an imposter supernova outburst to now being an X-ray binary to, well, hopefully just exploding. I for one am hoping for an explosion.
Yeah, come on, Eta Carr, explode already.
We need you.
Yeah,
We need you to
yeah,
explode.
so we can like read at night and things like that.
Yeah, it
See
would
another
be
star
awesome.
during the day. Little things like that. Do you have any more stories? Any more information from Australian astronomy?
Well, it's more than just stories. It's one of those things where we really do need to point out that these are people that have done amazing work noting that there are variable stars as well. And this is something that most societies didn't bother with until the 1700s. The Aboriginal peoples watching Betelgeuse, for instance, and their story of Betelgeuse and the constellation Orion is a beautiful one. If you're in Australia, Orion isn't this upright dude wearing a belt with a sword, but rather it's more lying on its side. And they saw the three belt stars as we perceive them in northern Western culture as being three brothers. And they saw Rigel and Betelgeuse as the points on a canoe, and they were able to see Betelgeuse varying over time with their unaided eye in comparison to the stars around it.
Another
And in
star that'll blow any time soon.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so here we have this really cool story of three brothers out in a canoe, and they got themselves into trouble fishing, and there was a water spout, and they caught a forbidden fish, and that forbidden fish they caught is the Orion Nebula that glows next to
Oh,
the
cool.
men in the canoe. And so here we have this case of a story of yet again a canoe in space. Canoes played a strong role. They come up over and over, and they saw in looking at this over and over the variability of a star, and they were able to conceive of the idea that stars aren't constant. Just being able to conceive of that
Yeah.
says that the minds were open to see what was there instead of what was conceived of.
And to have a long enough oral tradition to be able to note those changes and be able to keep track of it, which is very, very impressive.
And one of my real takeaways from reading about all these different nations of Australia who've maintained their stories is one of the things that we have largely lost is that passing of stories between generations, passing of even family histories between generations. And where you had these smaller societies that kept their own histories and felt more of a connection to their ancestors and to their lands, they know their land better, they know their history better. And we have actually lost out in not having those connections and not having those histories. We see in the peoples of Victoria of Vancouver Island histories of a tsunami from the 1700s. We see stories of Ada Karina, of impacts from 4,000 years ago in the oral traditions of Australia. And I hope we can find a way moving forward to keep our stories.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks, Pamela. And I'm assuming next week we'll talk about what's currently happening in astronomy in Australia.
Yes, we will.
And we may make you break one of your golden rules, which is that we're going to talk about an upcoming project.
I'm okay
All right.
discussing SPA.
Okay,
I'm okay
cool.
discussing SPA.
Do you have any names to read out this week?
I do. So as always, we are brought to you by you. We exist off of your patronage, and we are so grateful for everything that you give that lets us pay for our servers, lets us pay Susie, lets us do all the awesome things we do. And this week, I would like to thank Frederick Hoigna Kvam Jensen, Paul
Nice.
Jarman, Dan Littman, Kslal Panflenko, Ron Thurston, Glenn McDavid, Benjamin Davies, Shannon Humber, Dwayne Isaac, Jimmy Bergerson, Ryan James, Thomas Tubman, Jack, Joshua Pearson, Darcy Daniels, Rachel Fry, Claudia Masterani, William Andrews, Eric Ferenger, Neuter Dude, Frederick Sorga, David Gates, Brandon Voverton, Brent Knopp, Arthur Latz Hall, and Kristen Brooks.
Yay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
You did it.
I got through it. I only had to cough once.
I know, I saw that. How are you feeling now? Do you want to take some questions or do you want to wrap it up?
We can answer some questions.
Okay.
The world is slightly spinny, but that may make the questions more interesting.
Yeah. This is your chance, everybody.
This is episode 531.
Yes. Save it as a wave.
And just to, we are looking for someone who is living in the Tucson area. If you are, can you please direct message me, Nancy, or Susie, either on the Weekly Space Hangout Crew Discord or over on the CosmoQuest Discord, sorry, Weekly Space Hangout Crew Slack, or the CosmoQuest Discord. Again, we are looking for someone right now who's in the Tucson area. Please reach out. That's all I can say.
Okay. And then hit us with your questions.
Yep.
I don't see any questions. This is super weird. Then I'm just going to start ranting until questions start showing up. Which is, did you watch the Starlink launch last night?
It basically just like popped out.
Yeah. Yeah, like
hundreds of
60.
little
60.
still.
Yeah, 60 low Earth orbiting internet satellites. They went up last night. They've been deployed. Yeah. They're waiting for their solar panels to come online. It was a thrice used rocket. It was the heaviest launch that's ever been done on a Falcon 9 or a Falcon Heavy, 18.5 tons. That they need to do another 6 launches to get rudimentary worldwide internet access, which they should have done this year, maybe into next year, and then another, I think, 12 launches to get to a more sustainable level of internet, and then eventually the goal is to get to 12,000. It is, and there's, it's just SpaceX. They are launching a worldwide constellation of high-speed internet satellites that will provide anywhere on Earth like a gigabit of internet speed with almost no latency, like ping times that are a fraction of what you get through your regular internet. Like if you're an internet service provider and you're not freaking out right now, you should be, because this could just in just a couple of years wipe out the need for anyone else to provide internet anywhere on Earth. Like, and Carl and I have been thinking, like, we could just get a cabin in the way off the beaten path here on Vancouver Island and have I could do my job with gigabit internet. This is crazy. And these things have
these little tiny Hall effect drives, which are ion drives.
Yeah, they've got little ion drives on them.
And so they can maneuver on their own, get their way out of things. They use fuel so slowly that they're good for a long time. They're really kind of remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's happening. And this is just the beginning, right? Blue Origin has also announced that they're going to put up a constellation. And people have talked about the concern of space junk, but these are actually anti-space junk. They are such low orbit.
Steered, rather.
Yeah, but they're also super low altitude.
They're going to be putting them up in 3 different orbits. This was the mid-orbit array. They have 3 different arrays planned for their full constellation.
Well, but I mean,
they all self-destruct. That's true.
Yeah, they all self-destruct in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
So you don't have to really worry about them sticking around and making access to space difficult. So I think this is all great. There's a great question here, which I love. LKSSBBWS09 says, do you get dizzy while laying on your back on the ground and looking up at the stars in the sky?
Only if I think too hard and stop breathing.
I do. It's not bad when I know that feeling, though, that vertigo feeling when you're lying on your back and you're just looking up into space, and it starts to feel like you're falling a bit. But I really get it when I use a pair of binoculars, because now you're cut off from any other sort of landmarks around you, and you see, all you can see are the stars, and that I definitely feel I get off balance. I will fall over or not fall over. I'll sort of be swaying back and forth as I'm looking through the binoculars, because it's just like you're disconnected from your surroundings.
So that never gets me. But escalators. This is going to sound so stupid, but my brain, when you're on an escalator, will reorient horizontal to be the arm part of the elevator. So suddenly it's as though everyone is standing at a severe tilt. And the steeper the elevator, the greater my sense of, oh dear God, we're all going to die. And so I get vertigo from escalators.
That's funny. So people are mentioning some issues about the speed. Jorn Albert is saying it's a shared medium. Do the math. Under 1 million base stations and 1 million satellites, no one can use 1 gigabit. So the way it's going to work is it's going to be essentially the way our old internet used to work or our old Ethernet used to work, which was broadcast. So,
Yeah.
and it's such a weird idea. So every single piece of data that is sent up to the satellites will then just be rebroadcast by all the satellites all around the world. And then you will decode whatever comes into your device. So your device will be receiving all of this data, and then it will be dumping anything that's not for you. And you're going to be able to decrypt everything that is for you. And that's the plan on how that's going to work. Graham W is saying they're talking about a ping of between 40 and 60. I thought it was much less than that. Let me see.
I haven't read enough about it.
Yeah. I'm actually working on a video, so the point is that they're not, because they're orbiting at a much lower altitude, and they will be they're orbiting at a lower altitude, and they're going to be essentially the speed of light in space is the fastest possible speed. So
Right.
so actually light going through fiber optics is much slower, half the speed, a third the speed than what it is just to go through space itself. And so
And
that
like
is going
going
to be
through rubidium gas is going slower than you can walk.
yes.
So it's
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
remember that the speed of
Yeah.
light through a medium is highly variable.
So Starlink is saying ping times as low as 15 milliseconds. So, and part of this is because they've decided to go with a lower altitude for them. And same thing, Richard Hayes is saying, yeah, uploads, how about upload speed? So you're going to have to buy a pizza box sized transmitter and receiver, and it will transmit up. I don't know what the upload speeds are going to be. Um, I don't think they've said that yet. I mean, we're still waiting for everything to get figured out.
Yeah. They're still experimenting and playing.
Yeah. And Nicholas B is mentioning that it sounds like a security nightmare. Yeah, if somebody does get access to keys, they can decrypt everyone's transmissions. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
they better not. Although I think cryptography has been figured out pretty well at this point. The there's something else I was going to say about that. No. Anyway. Lillian Brennan asks, with that many, if multiple companies put up full sets, is there any risk of them hitting each other?
Yes.
Yes.
But this is why they have hull drives so they can move around.
Yeah, yeah. Is it going to be synchronous or asynchronous? So the point is that when you use the internet now, right? You use routers, and so your computer connects to your home router. Your home router connects to your upstream internet service provider. ISP makes connections to other ISPs. It then gets to the server that you're looking to communicate, and your messages have been sent and filtered and packeted and transferred multiple times. And this one, the way Starlink is going to work is there's no intermediary. So you transmit your data up to the satellites, and then your information is transmitted to everywhere. And so there's no in between steps. There's no really bouncing around in the same way. There's no routing. It'll just be broadcast. So it's a totally different way that the internet will work, and it avoids some kind of nice things like net neutrality becomes a non-issue, right? Like single-handedly, SpaceX can just make the whole concept of net neutrality disappear.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, right? Because there's just no way to funnel, target, change, observe. You just let it all go. All the data just bounces around. So I mean, if this happens again, I think this is a total. This could be one of the most important events in sort of the internet that's happened in a long time. And the fact that there are going to be competing constellations. So if SpaceX doesn't do this right, Blue Origin is hot on their heels, and so are many other companies that are also going to pay for rides to space on the SpaceX and Blue Origin hardware. So we're going to have a serious competition.
It is now a space race between the billionaires instead of between the nations
Yeah,
for commercial applications like internet.
yeah,
This is the point where space has finally said, "Hey, I have a commercial purpose for you."
yes.
And SpaceX and Blue Origin are the new Dutch East
Can you
spice trading
imagine?
company and
Yeah,
stuff
can
like
you
that.
imagine how much money could be made in
Global internet.
replacing global telecommunications?
And this will be a true multinational
Yeah,
because just like GPS satellites, yes, different nations all have their own GPS satellites,
yeah,
but we share
yeah,
access.
yeah. And so Uncle Willie's asking, would they be able to get over the Great Firewall? Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
way to block it, but China or countries that didn't want people to do this could block
They
the.
make the receivers illegal to
Right,
own.
you can't own the receiver. So if you can't get your hands on the receiver, then you're not allowed to access this network. But there's no way to actually block the network.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, crazy. And so you have to use the Chinese network, and so I'm sure they're going to launch one because it seems like the kind of thing they're going to be able to do. Wow, just amazing. Anyway, my video just wrote itself. I'm just going to write down the
Okay.
transcript of what I just said, and then that'll be my next video.
So this afternoon, I'm going to be uploading more images to Bennu Mappers. I'm probably going to do it on a live stream over on CosmoQuest, so you can watch me dealing with my hack together software, and then I'm going to mark some images,
That's
take your
great.
questions. It's just going to be a lazy, oh my God, it's hot today kind of day. Um,
Hey, you should
and
be
we
in
can be
bed
silent. I know
sleeping,
I should.
so this is definitely not lazy. You are going above and beyond the call of duty. William Vandebeek asks, "What does this mean for star photography, or just astronomy in general?" Okay, so
Oh dear God.
bad news.
Yeah, we're going to
Yeah,
have so many streaks we have to remove. Stack your images, people. Use
yeah,
min max reduction.
yeah. Astronomers are
Stack
gonna
your
be
images.
mad because
Yeah.
right now there are about 1,400 satellites. There's about 20,000 pieces of space junk that make their way through
Mhm.
your image, but a lot of those are at various altitudes, higher
Yeah.
altitudes. They don't pass through, they're not in full sunlight all the time in the same way. Uh, 12,000 low Earth orbiting satellites. I wonder though, right? Because if they are going to be on a really low trajectory, they're going to
So they're
pass
going
into
to
the
wreck
shadow
your
pretty
morning and
quick.
evening images.
Yeah, yeah, which suck anyway. So but I think, yeah, I think astronomers are gonna be unhappy about what this is gonna do to their pictures.
We're unhappy about so many things
What
right
if
now.
every time Starlink launches a new satellite, they also launch a new space telescope? What if each one of these satellites is also a
I'd be
space
okay with
telescope?
that.
Right.
I'd be okay
Yeah.
with that. So here's something I'm going to point out because I'm not sure how many people are aware of it. Your new 5G network that everyone's anxious for, it functions at frequencies that overlap with what we use for weather detection.
I heard about this.
And so if they actually implement 5G broadly, our ability to predict the weather is going to get worse than it currently is. And it's already getting worse because our current models don't work so well with the new normal of our planet.
Graham W is saying, I learned a new term, which is demisable. The
Yes.
Starlink satellites are demisable, which I think is interesting. Um, LKSSBBWS09 says, "What's the latest on Apophis? It's gonna pass the Earth really soon."
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not worried about it, but we will be watching it, and it could
right.
take out some satellites. It's what it does.
It's gonna be close. Yeah, you'll be able to.
Yeah.
You could see it with the unaided eye, right? You can just watch it
I
pass
I
over.
don't know that. I know it'll be easy to see with a device. I don't know the unaided eye thing.
Let's see. Pause, flyby. And then the concern was that then it's going to come back in about 10 more years.
Yeah.
And originally, it was going to pass. They weren't sure if it wasn't going to strike the
Yes.
Earth. Now they know for
So
sure that it won't.
right. So the initial error on how close to Earth it was going to be had it potentially hitting the Earth between Asia and America in the Pacific Ocean, which is kind of one of the worst places you can hit the Earth.
Yes.
Oceans are worse because they generate tsunamis. Read Lucifer's Hammer if you
Yes.
want to understand that more.
Yeah.
It's a sexist book due to the time that it was written. It's still, the science is good in it. Um, but we have since then realized that uh, it's not actually going to. I have a dog
Yeah,
helping.
you really do.
It's not actually going to get its orbit disturbed by the Earth so much that it comes back and hits the Earth later.
Yeah.
So we're fine.
Sean Kenny is noting that Lightsail 2 goes up next month. Yeah, there's going to be a Falcon Heavy launch with, it's going to be a military Falcon Heavy launch, but it's also going to contain a couple of other things, including, can you
Light
hear?
sail too.
Yeah, including Lightsail 2, which is
Which
going to
is going to
be,
be the first time that a light sail has been used to boost an orbit. And
yeah,
it's starting to get at the light sails that Arthur C. Clarke described in his yachting movie, his
yeah,
yachting short
yeah.
stories. So I just love the fact that we're starting to get applications of light sails other than, oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's going to deploy. It's going to deploy this thing. It's about the size of a boxing ring, they say, and then it's going to and once it hits about a 700-kilometer altitude, that's enough that the sail won't pull it back into the atmosphere, and so then they're going to try and significantly raise the altitude and demonstrate that solar sails are a viable method for flying around. Um, there's also the new NASA's picked the propulsion system, the company called Maxar, for building the solar electric drive for the propulsion module for Gateway.
That is all such a quagmire. I mean, did you see that the person who was directing it for NASA just quit
Yes.
yesterday and then got escorted out of NASA headquarters?
Yeah. Yeah. From what I understand, he quit because it looked like it wasn't going to get support,
Congressional support, yeah.
congressional support, and so he would be on the hook to deliver something that was unsupported, which is a
Yeah.
so I would have done the same,
Yeah, so
right?
when the dude who's in charge of making it happen is like, I don't want to be responsible for this.
Yeah.
I am quitting.
Yeah.
I put on my dubious hat.
Yeah. I mean, so right, so the White House said, "Can you do this?" And he probably said, "Here's what I need to do this." And they said, "So you can do this. No problem then." And then they went out and said, "We're going to do this." And then all of the pieces didn't come together, and so he said, "Remember when I said if we get the funding, then I can do this?" And it doesn't look like we're going to have the funding, so please stop saying that we're going to do this until you've got the funding. That's yeah.
Well, and he quit right after Jim Bridenstine did a big long announcement of funding and everything
Yeah.
else, and yeah, the timing of it was
Yeah.
the
And
thing.
I mean, I just did a video about this, and it's like, on the one hand, it's super exciting. Like how
Mhm.
we would love to have human beings walk on the surface of the moon again. And there and yet there are a lot of just established, entrenched situations. I mean, from the construction of the Space Launch System to Orion to the kinds of missions that are being considered, a lot of this stuff needs to all be seriously reconsidered for the amount of money that's been spent and the amount of
Yeah.
budget that's going into these various projects. And yet it's going to be the middle ground, right? It's not going to be this.
Well, the thing that has me really frustrated is there's going to be a ton of staffing time diverted at the administrative levels for people to figure out budgets, for people to put together proposals, for people to do the reports to Congress, for people to do the reports to the president. And this isn't the kind of money that is in the, this is the budget for Artemis. This is just the everyday working costs of NASA. And this is time and energy that's getting diverted from other things. And that that's all going to get wasted, it feels like.
Yeah. Yep. It's pretty hilarious to see that dog giving you kisses. That is so funny. For people who are listening to this, Pamela is attempting to be a professional while her dog is licking her face. So maybe on this note, we will start to wrap things up. So once again, if people want to watch and hang out with you, when is this happening?
I am going to probably start streaming in about half an hour over on twitch.tv/CosmoQuestX.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. And Pamela, so glad that you're feeling better.
It's been a journey.
I know it's been a dark couple of weeks. So here's to a rapid recovery to get you breathing again. All right. Thanks everybody. We will see you all next week.
Bye-bye.